Hey there, welcome to Coffee Break Plans. This week I am filling out my October reading journal. This month I chose to take part in the Erin Smith Bewitched Book Challenge, and what she and her book club, the Page Majors, did was put together a set of 8 spells with 3 book prompts for each spell, and the idea was to read a book that fit the prompt, and then if you read all 3 books in that particular spell, then you would cast that spell. And there were 3 different difficulties for it, and I chose to do it on the medium difficulty, which was the twin sigil, and that meant that each book I read could count towards 2 prompts and therefore 2 spells. So what I'm doing right now is putting together the spread that I'm going to use to keep track of that. And I'm just using some black note paper that I have from an Archer and Olive pad and some washi tape that I have from the washi tape shop. Now, if you do watch this channel, you know that I'm not fantastic at putting together really perfect aesthetic spreads, but all I want to do is put something together that looks reasonably nice to then put all my book covers onto. Now, if that little sliver of white between the black note paper and the washi tape is annoying you, don't worry, it will eventually annoy me and I will fix it, so put it out of your mind. Oh look, there we go, it's all fixed now. Panic over. I ended up reading 16 books in October that all went towards this book challenge. I did record me sticking them onto the page and doing the actual spread, but that was lost, so what you're stuck with is just me painfully cutting out all the covers. So I didn't stick with the Halloween or slash spooky season theme. I decided to read what I felt like reading. It ended up being a combination of young adult, non-fiction, and quite a few old favourites that were all chosen to fit the various prompts. I printed each cover out in 2 sizes, so the small one was for the spooky season spread, and the larger ones were for my normal reading journal spreads. I forgot to print out Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury, so there's a little bit of a gap. So this is the spread as it turned out in the end, and I'm going through and putting all the points that I was awarded here, and I ended up with 93 points. Now, if you ended up with 81 points or above, you were awarded the Archmage. So I also went ahead and printed out the seal for the Archmage on the twin sigil, which was the level of difficulty that I had my challenge set at, and I glued it on to finish off the spread. Onto my October spread. So this is just my normal spread that I do each month, and I wasn't sure how much time I was going to have for this reading challenge, so I only wrote in 3 spells, and I had to make a little bit of a running change to it because I changed out one of the books that I was going to read, so you'll see that ever so subtle correction that I've put in there. Instead of talking about all 16 books that I read this month, I decided just to pick the top 4. Funnily enough, although I normally have rules about picking my favourites as ones that I haven't reread, every single one of these I've read at least once in the past, and in the case of Dune, which I'm sticking on now, I've read so many times I've lost count. So the top book this month was Apollo 8. The full title of this book is The Thrilling Story of the First Mission to the Moon. So this fits the prompt of a book with the word moon in the title. It was written by Jeffrey Kluger, who of course was a best-selling author along with Jim Lovell of Apollo 13, which has an alternative title of Lost Moon. I've always been a fan of the Apollo program and of the space race and of that era of the technology that they were putting together in order to get to the moon. This is a really well-written book of what could be the most dry, boring subject you can even imagine. Fortunately, I do understand quite a lot of the technical stuff, but I think that anyone could come to this book and read it and really enjoy it for the story that it is without needing to have a pre-understanding of what's going on with all the techno talk. Excellent, excellent book. The next book that I'll get to in due course is Tana French, Faithful Place. This was the very first book of Tana French that I ever read. I think I bought it while I was overseas, before Kindles became very well known or popular, and I was looking for a reasonably meaty book to read on the bus. So I picked up Tana French, Faithful Place, and it was incredible. It's part of the Dublin Murder series. I think there's about 4 in that series. You can read each of them on their own, and this is one that has a protagonist that as you go through you realize you don't particularly like him, but the more you read and the further you get into his past, you realize why he is like he is. It starts off at the very beginning with him waiting for his girlfriend back when he's about 17, and then it picks up in the present day when his girlfriend never turned up on that particular night, and it's something like 30 years later. I'd rather not talk about it too much further because it will spoil it, and this is a book that I highly, highly recommend. It is well worth reading for the characters alone. The next one on the top 4 list is The Ghost in the Attic by Betty Wren Wright. This is back in the days of the Lucky Book Club or the Arrow Book Club. I can't remember what they were called, but basically it's a scholastic book. Spoiler alert, there is a ghost, although it's not much of a spoiler considering it's in the title. But it scared the heck out of me when I was a kid, and I was a little bit worried about it doing the same again now. But I ended up rereading it and it was without incident. And all I could think was sometimes when you reread a childhood book, it feels rushed. But this story did not feel rushed at all. The author really takes her time with the characters and makes sure that you really understand where they come from, why they are what they are. And it comes to a really nice little resolution there with a kind of a happily ever after. So I really, really enjoyed it back then and I enjoyed reading it again now. And last but absolutely not least is Dune by Frank Herbert. I can't make this the book of the month because if I did, it would just be the book of the year. This is my favourite book of all time. So I read this when I was 13. I didn't understand probably most of it, but I did understand the basic coming of age story that runs through the centre of it. I've read it so many times since then, it's ridiculous. I just can quote bits and pieces from it. Every single year, I would take it on the plane to fly down to see my parents for Christmas. And my mum would say to me, "Don't you ever get sick of reading that book?" And of course, the answer to that is no, mum, never. I come from a quite a sci-fi loving family, and what I'm about to write here, which is taking me a while to think about by the looks, is that this was really the first sci-fi series that I found on my own. Everything else was introduced to me by someone in my family. So Star Wars, Star Trek, Buck Rogers, you name it, all the sci-fi biggies was something that our family used to watch all the time. But this one I found on my own and loved on my own. As the youngest child in my family by a considerable margin, I think it was quite a big moment for me. So I always remember this book and this series for that. Now, flipping back to my book bracket, I'm just going to put in my book of the month and the book of the 2 months, which is going to be Apollo 8. You can see I've started to sketch out my book matrix on the right hand side there, and I will do a video on that. I'm now putting together the spread for next month, just putting together my to be read list. Starting with my Trixie Beldens, which of course I'm running a little bit behind on because of this month's quite large commitment. So I'm just writing out the 4 that I intend to read this month. And I think you'll see later on that I highlight one because I actually finished one last night, which was quite handy. And my theme for the month is Lose the Lens. I have a whole pile of books at the moment sitting on my bedside table that have all been lent to me by a whole bunch of people, and I really want to finish those off and give them back before the end of the year. So that's going to be my focus for November. And that about wraps it up for my book journal this month. Have a great week, and I will see you next time.